Hello and welcome back to the lab. Today on the bench we have one of my personal laptops out of the personal collection. This is a repair that I've been putting off for a while, but it's gotten to the point where I have no choice and I have to do it. As with most pieces of modern technology, this one being no exception, the battery has gone flat. So I'll leave it charging for days at a time and it gives me about 30 minutes of battery left on it. So the lithium-ion battery has gone away and left the chat. So we got to fix it. And this particular unit is not of the era where the battery was a quick pop off the bottom and out comes the battery. So we actually have to tear into this thing and get the battery out. This particular laptop is a Precision 5530 workstation, and it's a nice laptop. There are some things about it that I do like, and there are some things about it that I don't like. One of the things I don't like about it is I don't have a hardline network port on it anymore. A couple of things I do like about this laptop is this screen on this is absolutely fantastic. It has one of the best pictures. It has one of the best built-on laptop screens that I have seen in a while, which is one of the reasons why I want to keep it going. It's also a 4K screen. You've seen this in a couple of videos. If you take a look at the Quantasylum video and a few others, this is a laptop that actually shows up on the bench and gets put in front of the camera. So we got to get it back up and running. To get started, it looks like we have Torx bits where we will pop the screws out, and then I believe the cover lifts off this way. I have a brand new laptop that was delivered Monday of last week, and I had to get in it to put some hard drives in it and get it configured the way I wanted to. And the instructions for that laptop were take the 6 screws out and then pry the bottom off. Not great to get into the brand new laptop. Was pop a couple of screws out and take a pry bar to it. Definitely got a little skittish there. But I'll move the camera and we'll get into this. Get this battery replaced. Okay, we'll do this in real time because this shouldn't take too long. And we will talk about a few things while I get this done. These screws are very tiny, and the bit that I need to get into these is a T5. So while I'm taking this apart, lithium-ion batteries are, by their nature, quite volatile little pieces of technology. They're wonderful due to their energy density and things like that, but they can be quite hazardous to keep around. They can be quite hazardous to work on, and a few other things. There's plenty of videos on the internet about what happens when lithium-ion batteries go sideways in a very big way, and they should not be feared, but they should be respected. I know a couple fellow techs on YouTube like to call them spicy fire pillows. They are definitely spicy fire pillows. The whole thing is tearing the pouch, and depending on what you're working on, cell phone, tablet, laptop, things like that, sometimes the batteries are taped or glued into the device. This makes removal quite touchy. I don't expect that problem here. Let's see what we got to do to get... Oh, nope, this one comes off pretty easy. And I think we are in a little bit of pop clip, and we're going to pop out. Might have 2 more screws under here. Missing one, but yeah, there was one under. The serial numbers and stuff are under the cover. Let's see if we open up now. Open sesame. There we go. Not... Oh, that shifted. That's not supposed to be there. That's supposed to be over there. Interesting. All right. We'll get that fixed up. This is the thermal pad for the SSD. So, when presented with a laptop, we have 2 processors under the heat sinks. While we're in here, we will give this a service. Ooh. Batteries in front. Hard drive's going to be here. RAM modules here. We have fans for the CPU and the graphics card. I do not know which one is which without taking the heatsink apart, but I would bet this is the graphics card and this is the CPU, simply because we have more thermal pad up here, and this is going to be probably the VRAM for the video card. We got to get this thing out. We have M2x4 screws holding it in, and those look like they are going to be of the Phillips flavor. That's not the right bit, even though it fit. No, J1 fits better. Yep, that's a good fit. So, because of the fitment, I'm going to use the J1 bit to pop this battery loose. We should have... Laptops have some very weird... wait. No, that speaker, that does not need to come out. Battery screw is next to it. So the real trick to working around these batteries safely is to be respectful of the pouch and not tear it. The chemical reaction that causes the battery to get really pissed off and fire is a runaway thermal event when the lithium in the battery reacts with the moisture in the air. Also, you can have a battery that goes into thermal runaway, so it is always a good idea to keep lithium batteries within their charging limits and things like that when working with lithium batteries. They are amazing pieces of technology, but they get very cranky very quickly. So keep in mind charge currents, things like that, and they also charge differently. So depending on the battery chemistry, nickel metal hydride, NiCad, lithium ion phosphate, all the exotic battery chemistries, they all charge slightly differently than each other. And need to be charged by the appropriate controller. If you charge a lithium-ion battery with a NiCad controller, you could get fire. Essentially, if you mistreat a lithium-ion battery, it's fire. It's just a bad day. The other thing that's important is this is going to create some e-waste. We need to dispose of this correctly, because what's happening is people throw away a tablet, something like that, and it's actually causing the fire trucks to catch fire, because every waste management truck, at least in my area, has a compactor built into the back of it. They squeeze, something lines up just right, punches through this, and then the back of the truck's on fire. And in a garbage truck, there is a lot of stuff to burn. So be careful and definitely dispose of the batteries in an appropriate way for your locality, because every locale is going to have different rules on what to do with lipos. We're going to get the thermal pad apart without it tearing too badly. It does appear that way. Yeah, we will. It is torn, but it will still function. Also, these NVMe drives, they do need some thermal sinking. This pad actually thermal sinks it to the back of the case. And these pads tend to be, the NVMe drives tend to be a little volcanic. They will thermal limit themselves, and that'll slow down the responsiveness of the machine if they're overheating. It won't kill them, because they will manage the temperature internally to keep from melting, but they will slow down. This particular battery has a capacity problem. It's not bulging like some batteries sometimes do. Any battery that's a LiPo that you run into that is starting to swell and expand, get rid of it as soon as possible. Do not continue using it. It will eventually become fire. I know I sound redundant on this, but really, lithium-ion batteries, when they go sideways, it just becomes fire. It's not a good day. It's also a fire that burns very, very hot, is incredibly hard to put out, and cannot be put out with water. You know professionally you've entered a weird space when you start seeing Class D fire extinguishers on the wall. At least in my area of the world. Class D is for flammable metals. And you'll know if you see one because they look very unique. Okay, those vents weren't actually too bad based on how infrequently I'm in this unit. We can see some dust and dirt. We're going to wipe this down with alcohol before we put it all back together, give it a nice clean up and tune up while we're in here. Right in front of these heat sinks is a place to keep an eye out for laptops, especially if they're running very, very hot and there's pets involved. These fans pull air directly from the room through the vents in the bottom. Actually, here's one right here. And those are right over the fans. So it'll pull up dust and hair and things like that. And because it's moving this way, the heatsink fins will act as screens, and it'll just start stacking up on there. I've pulled these fans out of laptops that haven't been serviced in a couple of years, and it pulls out like a piece of felt. Just comes out from in there. So definitely something to be aware of if you have an older laptop that seems to be running a bit warmer than it should. Make sure it's actually getting airflow and the vents aren't clogged, because that does happen quite frequently with laptops. Okay, out with the old, in with the new. Get this connector hooked up the hard way, it seems. Yeah, the key is up top. Okay. Making sure we didn't reverse the polarity, because that also does wonderfully horrible things to the board. And we don't want to do that. Because I actually kind of like this laptop. All right. We'll get these screws put back in. It is also really important then when working on mobile devices specifically, but laptops as well, to make sure the screws end up back in the correct place. There we go. Wires were not cooperating. They're going to need to squish. There, that's better. That's what I wanted. Don't want to short any of the wires under the battery, because these all happen to be the same length, M2x4, but you can end up with screws that are different, not the same size, different lengths, and it's very hard to tell. So there's a magnetic mat that you can get where you can lay the screws out in the positions they came out, but then you can also do it in sections if you have a multi-layer board. So if I had to tear this all the way down to the keyboard, I'd have like 3 or 4 blocks on that magnetic mat where I'd have the case screws, the battery screws, the heatsink screws, and all that all spaced out. So makes it easier to put them back in the holes they came out of. All right, so without pinching anything, this cable is really important not to pinch. This is the actual display driver cable going up through the monitor hinge that actually drives the display. So if this gets caught or cut or anything like that, it can kill the monitor. So we want to be really careful with that one. This is going to sit down and lock in. And it does feel like our thermal pad ended up where it was supposed to. Oh yeah, I gotta go back to the Torx. Now I'm leaving the screws loose while the case settles, and once I get all the screws in, I'll tighten it back up. That's just something to give the case a bit of movement while it gets into its final position. The more screws you have holding something together, the more critical that is because what will happen is if you tighten everything down in the first go, everything will be tight as you move this way. This will not line up. It'll shift it'll push everything that way. I haven't done that more times than I'd like to admit. Gentle pressure, making sure we're not cross-threading anything. These screws are very small, very easy to cross-thread. All right, we'll get this one back under here where the serial number is. And now we'll go around and just do a tighten pass, making sure everything is seated correctly. And there we go. So all in all, Lipo batteries, not something to be not something to be afraid of, but something to be respected. Also make sure, don't keep them around like this, because if you throw them all in a bucket or something like that, something will get a nick and the whole thing will be fire. But dispose of them appropriately for your locale, and make sure they do not wind up in the trash, because that is going to start a fire either in the truck, at the dump, or somebody's going to get a surprise when one of these things goes off. The bigger the batteries, the bigger the fire. Also, to minimize the risk if you're uncomfortable handling a potential fireball, it will not completely get rid of the risk, but if the battery is drained when you work on it, it will not have as much energy if it does decide to get cranky. It will still be a problem. It's not like there won't be fire. There just won't be as much fire. So there's always fire. Wow, after buffing that screen, the light goes kind of nuts. Oh well. All right. Well, if we did our part, there won't be fire. Yes, we are charging. Fire up the laptop, and we'll just make sure everything is good and no damage. Well, battery's detected. 2 hours and 9 minutes until full charge. Hopefully we'll get longer than 20 minutes out of this one. So everything is good to go. And everything looks all right. So I'm going to let this charge up on the bench, get the towel in the wash, and if you're liking the content, hit the subscribe button, the bell, and stick around. Patreons help keep the lights on in the lab far more than anybody realizes. And if you check out the Patreon page, they're about 5 videos ahead at the moment. Everything does end up on YouTube. There is nothing behind the paywall. The supporters of the channel support the channel because they would like to support the channel and help me get videos out to YouTube. So everything does come out, but they do help me make decisions in steering the channel and what we should take a look at next. So if that sounds interesting, head over there, take a look. There's a few more videos, but they'll end up on YouTube eventually. I am in the comments section between videos, and I love hearing from everybody who's watching the channel. So with that, I will see everybody in the next video. That's it for today.